Hello folks, my name is Mayank Dwivedi. Today we are going to start the lecture second, part first. In this lecture we are going to talk about role of geographical factors in shaping history of India and about Stone Age. Let us take it as a question, discuss the role of geographical factors in shaping history of India. So let's divide this answer in several parts in which we are going to talk about role of hills and mountains, role of fertile plains, role of natural resources, role of climate, role of rivers, role of coast, role of monsoon and rainfall. Let's discuss the role of hills and mountains. Let's take role of Himalayas. First, Himalayas. As we know, Himalayas act as a barrier to Siberian cold winds. Because of that, the climate of northern India has been comparatively warm, and this warm climate played an important role in growth of flora and fauna in the northern India, which is also very suitable for human life. So the density of the population in India has greater than China and others. Himalayan mountain act as a barrier to the foreign invaders also throughout the Indian history. So no invasion was witnessed through the Himalayas before the 1962 war, which we had with China, because Himalayas have very few passes and it is almost impossible to cross with large armies. Through Himalayan range is almost impossible to cross for a large army, but there are number of passes throughout Himalayan range which have enabled socio-culture and economic contact of India with outside world. Because of barrier of Himalayas, India has largely free from politico military upheavals witnessed in Central Asia. The Himalayas are also source of number of perennial rivers like Ganga, Indus, Brahmaputra. These rivers having the cradles of culture and civilization of India throughout ages. Role of Vindhyas have ensured that the political and military development going on in northern India didn't have much impact on the life of peninsular India. Because of this, Indian culture has continued to flourish in India even if northern India was conquered by Turks. Role of Aravalis. Aravalis have divided western India in number of small pockets, because of which western India has also seen extents of large number of principalities. These Rajput states were almost equal in strength, that is, the political unification was rare in Rajputanas throughout the history. Let's talk about hilly terrain of Deccan. As we know, because of this hilly terrain, the Marathas could fight successfully against Mughals by using guerrilla warfare, and throughout history, that section has its own rulers. Let's talk about fertile plain. Role of the fertile plains. The availability of extensive fertile plains in the northern India have ensured that the large empires emerged in north throughout the Indian history. There has not been a single example when a power could rule over whole of the India by starting from south. Whoever controlled the north was able to control the south, but opposite could never have seen because of the resources provided by the fertile plain. For example, French failed because their focus was on south, and when Bengal was captured by British, they became almost invincible. And it was the conquest of Bengal that sealed the fate of India. It was because the availability of extensive fertile plains. The capital of India has always been located between Lahore and Calcutta. Let's talk about other natural resources. The resource availability has left a lasting impact on the direction of Indian history, because the most powerful empire emerged in those areas where the natural resources were in plenty. For example, Magadhan Empire was more successful than other 15 Mahajanpadas because the availability of iron mine, timber and other natural resources in the Magadhan region. The availability of iron allowed Magadhan rulers to use iron weapon on large scale, so their army was more successful and more powerful. Let's talk about role of climate. The warmer climate of northern India when compared to Trans-Himalayas had ensured that the most vegetation and human life could continue to flourish throughout the ages in this region. The extreme climate of Himalayan region has ensured that the population density remained very low in that area. The natural vegetation and other form of wildlife could continue to survive in such low population density area. As we see, the number of flora and fauna are much higher in the Himalayan region than the plain region. Let's talk about roles of river. The alluvial soil brought by the rivers have formed the extensive fertile plains in India. These plains have provided the resources for continued and the continuation of human life throughout the ages. The river are narrow in foothills of the mountain and hills. These narrow rivers could also be easily crossed without boats and other technology. So early man settled in foothills of the mountain. Rivers in plain are prone to flooding, and these were almost impossible to cross by early man. That is why the Gangetic plain were occupied by lakhs of years by Stone Age only. During the Mesolithic age, men started settling in Gangetic plain. These rivers provided water for drinking as well as agriculture purpose. That's why the culture and civilization emerged in the river valleys during the ancient time. Rivers also acted as potential boundary throughout the Indian history. The next one, role of coast. The coastal area have witnessed a maximum interaction with outside world because of this socio-cultural life in coastal region has been cosmopolitan in character. The people living in coastal area have been more liberal and progressive throughout the ages. The rigidity of feudal society is absent in coastal region. The extensive Indian coastline has allowed India to maintain trade and commerce even when the land trade routes were obstructed due to the politico-military developments. The sea route remained open. It was because of this reason Harappan civilization continued to flourish in Gujarat for many centuries after its decline in northern and western parts. The foreigners coming from Arab and Europe reached peninsular India before their arrival in northern India because of the facilities provided by ports located on Indian coasts. Let's talk about role of monsoon and rainfall. The distribution of rainfall also affected the course of Indian history in many ways. Monsoon rainfall reduced from east to west. That is why the population density and the forest follows the same pattern. Areas of moderate rainfall have been most densely populated because their stability, their sustainability for agriculture and the horticulture. The development in rain shadow region of Maharashtra has been quite low since ages because the absence of sufficient rainfall agriculture could not progress in that area. Similar has been the picture in Gujarat Rajasthan region where the rainfall extension is limited. These can also be considered as geographical factor in political fragmentation of India. So we can say that India has continental character because of its extensive geographical spread. The ruler of India have faced great difficulty throughout ages in carrying out political unification of the land. Except the Mauryan Guptas, the political fragmentation character in Indian history has been present throughout the ages. Because of this extensive geographical spread, Indian rulers could get little time to look for colonies outside of India or to subjugate Trans-Hindu Kush region. On the other hand, foreign invaders have been far more frequent throughout Indian history. Let's talk about Stone Age. We are going to divide the whole subject matter in three parts and we will discuss it on the basis of material culture, the living pattern, the economic life, the religious life and the cultural life. The Stone Age was started around 1.4 million years ago and it lasted till 2800 BC. So let's take the material culture. So we will divide the material culture into three ages: Paleolithic age or Old Stone Age, then we will go with Mesolithic age, then the Neolithic age. In case of Paleolithic age, we will divide in three parts: Lower Paleolithic age, Middle Paleolithic age and Upper Paleolithic age. So for material culture, the Paleolithic age lasted till 10,000 years ago, which is 8000 BC. So let's talk about Lower Paleolithic age. During Lower Paleolithic age, tools were based on technology of core. In this technology, bigger stone pieces were hit by other stone pieces and the outer layer was removed and the inner part was used as tools. During Middle Paleolithic age, flake technology was used for making tools. In this technology, the outer layer was removed by the bigger stone pieces. Core of stone was used as tool. During Upper Paleolithic age, tools were based on blade technology. In this, tools have sharp edged and one edge of a stone was sharp by hitting it by another stone. And during this time, tools made up of wood were also used for first time. Bones tools were also used. For example, antler's horn was used as tool. We got that from excavation of Bilas Ragman cave located in Kunnur district of Andhra Pradesh. Mesolithic age, it was between 18,000 BC to 8,000 BC in Southwest Asia. During this age, better variety of quartz stone such as cherts, jasper, flint were used for making tools. The tools of this age were small in size. The characteristic of tools of this age are also about 8 centimeter. So they are also known as microliths. So this age is also called microlithic age. For example, in this age, arrowheads, spearheads were used. Let's talk about Neolithic age. It was around 12,000 BC to 1900 BC in Southwest Asia. In this age, igneous stone was used for making the tools. Because of this, the tools of Neolithic age were far more stronger than earlier periods. And in Neolithic age, first time man used celt, which celt means basically the tools with handle. Use of these kind of tools make it precise and make them more effective and efficient. This indicates that the Neolithic man was aware of the principle of torque. At least he has the knowledge that using celt will require less amount of force from him. Tools of Neolithic age were based on the technology of grinding and polishing, as the result of which tools of this age were highly refined. Let's talk about pattern of living and geographical area occupied, starting with Paleolithic age. During Paleolithic age, man lived in foothills of mountain. The northern plains were not occupied because the rivers were narrow in foothills of the mountain that could be easily crossed. And in case of plain, the river were extremely wide. The stone were easily available in the foothills and they were not in plains. Caves were available in foothills. In case of plains, there were no caves, so nothing for shelter. In case of plain, forests were less dense in foothills, and in case of plain, there were dense forests. So foothills were safe for Paleolithic age men. In case of Paleolithic, man did not build artificial home for residential purpose, so natural caves were used for residential purpose shelter taking. For example, Bhimbetka caves, Raisen, MP. In case of Mesolithic age, during this period, man lived in northern plains. Earliest evidence was found at Kalpi, Jalon district, Uttar Pradesh, and Maudaha, also in Maudaha, Ghatapur, Uttar Pradesh, Sarai Nahar Rai, Pratapgarh district, Uttar Pradesh. During Mesolithic age, man had started constructing artificial home. Huts were built by using bamboo and grass. Evidence of such type of living found in Bagaur, Rajasthan, Adamgarh, Madhya Pradesh, Langnaz, Gujarat, Virbhanpur, West Bengal. And then in case of Neolithic age, during this time man occupied whole Indian subcontinent. Houses were built by using sun-dried bricks for residential purpose. And in case of Kashmir Valley, it is a good example. There was a pit dwelling because it was warmer than using a brick-dried home. So in short, we can say Paleolithic man, foothills of mountains and caves. Mesolithic man, northern plains, huts, grass and bamboo. And the Neolithic man, whole Indian subcontinent, pit dwelling, dried bricks home. So let's talk about economic life during the Stone Age. In case of Paleolithic age, the earliest man survived on roots, fruits. The earliest man was vegetarian because of anatomically man was not evolved enough to digest meat. As human being start to evolve in man, it started consuming meat and hunting began. In this way, Paleolithic man survived on hunting and food gathering activities. Economy was obsolete, surplus was absent, and there was no concept of property. So during Paleolithic age, the people's size were very small, so the hunting and food gathering activities were quite sufficient to sustain human life. And in case of Mesolithic age, by 8000 BC, the climate was quite warmer. The temperature had increased quite a bit. So the research have brought to light that fast dry winds blew on the earth during this age. Because of these dry winds, the temperature increased quite sufficiently. The water got dried up from many parts of earth and the land got cleared for vegetation and mainly grasses. Due to this improvement in the climate, the population size of human increased and this climate was far more suitable for human life. The increase in population resulted in formation of groups, and for the first time community life began. The number of families started living together. This increase in population made hunting and food gathering activities no longer sufficient for survival of communities. So under these circumstances, man started domestication of animals, and as a result of this, the pastoral life commenced. The animal was domesticated for meat. Animals like goat, sheep, ram were most common domesticated animals. Domestication of animals was facilitated by the availability of vegetation. Economy was still in subsistence because there was no surplus. So hunting and food gathering were continued practice. In case of Neolithic age, by 5000 BC, the climate had improved further, as a result of which people increased significantly. The pastoral economy was not in position to meet the growing food needs of people. Under these circumstances, the man took to agriculture. The beginning of agriculture was a revolutionary development in many ways because it was the first time man became a producer of his own. Human was no longer fully dependent on other beings for their survival. Beginning of agriculture resulted in settled life. The man has no longer required to move from places to places in search of food. The nomadic life came to an end. For the first time, villages emerged. For example, Mehergarh, which is located in Bolan Valley in Balochistan, which is in Pakistan now, it have the earliest village in Indian subcontinent subcontinent dated between 7000 BCE to 5500 BCE, and the need to store food grains compelled man to make pottery. Initially pot were handmade, but later on the wheel was invented to turn the pot. The invention of wheel was also a revolutionary development because it paved the way for invention of card. The card greatly expanded the scope of socio-cultural economic interaction. Because of this, first time man got a vehicle. Let's talk about religious life. During Middle and Lower Paleolithic age, there was no idea of religion in any form. The religious life commenced during Upper Paleolithic age. This is indicated by the use of burial practice. The dead bodies were no longer thrown away. They began to bury their own. The earliest grave have been found in Karnoor, Andhra Pradesh. These belong to Upper Paleolithic age. Throughout Stone Age, burial only evidence of religion, that is Mesolithic and Neolithic. Let's talk about cultural life. The Paleolithic man took interest in art and painting. Once immersed, the painting continued to be practiced. About 500 paintings were found on the wall of Bhimbketa caves, Madhya Pradesh. These earliest of paintings are about 1 lakh years old, means about 100,000 years old. Some of these paintings belong to Lower Paleolithic age and most of these belongs to Mesolithic age. Painters used red and white colors most commonly. At times, yellow and green colors are also used. These colors were mineral in nature, some extracted from plants. These paintings depict hunting, fighting scenes, birds, animals, and other day-to-day activities. Some of the paintings found in Bhimbketa cave depict the scene of communal dance. So this indicates that Stone Age man practiced dancing. If there is a dancing, so we assume that there is some music too. We assume that the language is to be used by Upper Paleolithic age man because brain was developed enough to process complex sentences. For today, this is all from my side. Please like, subscribe and share it with your friends. Thank you. Mayank Dwivedi signing off.